everyone. I'm Andrea Shorter. I'm the Deputy Director of Marriage and Coalitions for Equality California, and I am very honored and pleased to be here this morning with Reverend Amos Brown, who is the Senior Pastor at Third Baptist Church here in San Francisco, and also presides over the NAACP chapter here in San Francisco, and has been a civil rights mover and shaker and leader in San Francisco and the Bay Area for some time. We are very, very appreciative of the time that you've taken to share with us today your history, your thoughts on where we are in the civil rights movement, and certainly your relationship to the legacy of Martin Luther King, who we are celebrating his birthday here in January. So again, thank you so very much for being with us this morning. So wanted to start off just basically talking a little bit about your background, where you come from. We have definitely worked together over the years, and I've heard you speak on a number of occasions about your upbringing in Mississippi and the impact of historical events like the slaying of Emmett Till and how that affected your worldview as a young man. So if you can share some of your story, that'd be great.
It all happened in the mind of a Sunday school teacher, Miss Essie Randall, who one Sunday morning asked me did I know what my name meant in Hebrew, Amos. And I told her no. She said, well, I must tell you that your name means the prophet who bears the burdens of the people. And she said, you're going to be a prophet and a preacher. I see that in you. I was only 8 years old then. And from that statement, from that moment, as I developed as a lad in Mississippi, I guess the experience was heightened when I picked up the Jet magazine in 1955, I believe it was the month of August, and I saw this grotesque, mutilated image of Emmett Till, and I read where these white men were accused of lynching him and throwing him in the river after they had put a mill wheel around his person, thinking that he would not float again. But he came back up, and when he came back up, the rest, became history. And that was a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. And when I saw that and realized that those men murdered Emmett Till because he was black, and a black man was not supposed to have any conversation with a white woman. Always at the base of this issue of race in this country has been sex.
Right. Right.
And because they beat him that way, I said I would never find it in my being, in my bones, my skin, to convey any attitudes, engage in any activities that would position me to be mean toward other people because they're different.
Right.
And I never veered away from that position. And I have taken the stance at great sacrifice and lost a lot of friends and caused trauma even to this net in my church on this issue, and even on the national board of NAACP.
Right.
But I just said, I'm sorry. I can't change because I must be consistent on the issue of how you treat people and how you give people equality of opportunity, and you can't cherry pick on moral issues.
Right.
if you don't want anyone being mean to you, don't become that which you hate. And everybody hates being lied on, misrepresented, treated wrongly because of.
Right.
Because you're black, because you're a woman, because you're a Baptist, because you're a Jew. You know, and we need to, in spite of the reality that people are different, be civil, kind, and respectful. That's how we ought to be dealing with. And next, it's just illogical, it's inconsistent, it's immoral for me to stand up and fight for the rights of black people to pursue the American dictum of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Right.
And then tell gays and lesbians, though your pursuit of happiness may be different from mine, I'm going to deny you that right.
Right.
And then it's ludicrous. It doesn't make sense to be talking about Thurgood Marshall went before the Supreme Court, that high court. He, Charles Hamilton Houston, and Robert Carter, and Oliver Hill, these sharp legal minds went before that court and plucked out of the Constitution of the United States the 14th Amendment. On the basis of that amendment, they argued so persuasively that black children were denied equal protection under the law if they were forced to go to segregated schools. Those schools were inherently unequal. Okay? And then we got the unanimous decision that broke down segregation in public education. Changed the moment and the time when, because of our being blacks, we couldn't go to this school.
Right.
Because of where we lived, we couldn't go to this school. But that was changed. And I think that gays and lesbians, transgender people have the right to live their lives in this nation and be recipients of that equal protection under the law and able to pursue life, liberty, and happiness in accordance with how they define it and feel it. Now, that's not to say that I do not come out of a faith tradition, Southern Baptist. My grandfather was a Baptist preacher. My father was a Baptist preacher. I had 4 uncles who were Baptist preachers. And in the Baptist culture, it's a culture thing. We do not perform same-sex marriages. But constitutionally in this nation, it is wrong for Amos Brown and Third Baptist, in my estimation, to be in cahoots with the Mormon Church, conservative white evangelicals, to push a proposition that would deny gays, lesbians, and transgender people equal protection under law and the right to pursue their own happiness. For me, that's simply it. You know, I've used an illustration to explain my position, and still people don't get it. And I think they don't get it because they're scared.
Right.
They're fearful. They are guilty of wanting to be in a position of upmanship on somebody else. Always want to put down somebody else. That they would go after gays, they would go after blacks, go after women, you know.
Right.
So my point that I'm making is that I cannot eat lobster.
Right.
Maybe you can eat all the lobster in the world that you want to eat.
Right.
Okay? My biochemical system will not ingest and digest lobster. What does that mean? I'm any less as a human being? And I've tried to say to my fellow faith members and leaders, look, gays and lesbians and transgender people have a different biosexual system. And it's not for you to say that they made a choice. You don't know that. You're not God.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So that let them be who they are. And you be who you are. And let us respect each other and be the kind of people that Martin Luther King fought for us to be,
Right.
died for us to be, and that was a beloved community.
Mm-hmm.
Now, having said that, I come down to my relationship with Dr. King.
Yeah.
I first met Dr. King in 1956, right here in San Francisco. I was 15 years old. Medgar Wiley Evers, the slain civil rights leader from my native state of Mississippi,
Right.
had brought me here as the youth delegate from the state of Mississippi. I had organized the West Jackson Youth Council, the first youth council of NAACP in the state of Mississippi. And on youth night here at this convention in 1956, Dr. King spoke. And I never shall forget when he concluded his great oration. His peroration at the end was, "I have the dream that the day will come when all of God's children, from base, black, to treble white, will be significant on the Constitution's keyboard." And he really, as they say, got the house that night. And that resonated with me. And later when I finished high school, well, before I finished high school, actually, my science teacher, Miss Anna Laura Robinson, took us on a tour of the Southeast region. And we went to black colleges in Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama and other historical spots. And we went to Morehouse campus. And that was another introduction to the Morehouse tradition, to Dr. King, his father, William Holmes Borders, Benjamin Mays, and all of them. And these were persons who were driven by a notion, an idea of called personalism.
Personalism.
Yes. And Dr. King at Boston University did a lot of treatment of this concept in his doctoral dissertation when he got his PhD degree in systematic theology. And in essence, it means every person is of worth and dignity, created in the image of God. God is love. And if we are created in the image of God, we're supposed to be loving each other.
Right.
Not hating each other, not dividing each other, not treating each other in a mean fashion. And I am confident, and I think maybe I have more authority to say this than many people, because Martin Luther King taught only one course in his lifetime,
Right.
1960. And I was fortunate to be chosen to be a part of this seminar in social philosophy at Morehouse College.
Wow.
And its historical record is documented. There were 8 of us in that seminar, only 8. So it was a close, intimate seminar.
Very select.
Yes. And the other person who was in that seminar was Julian Bond,
Right.
the present chairperson of the board, National Board of NAACP.
Right.
We sat at his feet. We were able to, pick the mind, pick the brain of the man. And if Martin Luther King were alive today, he would not be in that crowd that supported Proposition 8. His wife, Coretta, during her lifetime,
Yeah. That's right.
also supported gay rights. All right? Now, the daughter, Bernice, I don't know where she got it from.
She's heading up SCLC now.
Yeah, yes, but she's not been in the tradition of her father and mother on this issue.
Right.
Yeah, she got influenced and impacted by someone else, or she never discovered really what her daddy was about.
Right.
I say that respectfully, because, as I said earlier, I knew the man. I spent time in jail with him, talked with him, observed him, saw him a month before he was assassinated. So I think that as we go forward to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday, we can't have a celebration that is not hypocritical and hollow by not advocating for the rights of gays, lesbian, and transgender persons. I really believe that.
Right.
And I hope and pray that the day will come when black people, black faith leaders, would just chill, sit down, reflect, and in a civil way, see what the issues are, and stop this demagoguery that's demonizing gays and lesbians.
Right.
And I would take it to another level and say, I consider it to be very hypocritical and illogical for conservative religious people to say we got to defend marriage. You can't defend marriage.
Right.
That's a personal issue. Nobody dictated to any heterosexual whom they should marry. Huh?
Right.
Nobody told a preacher that you got to marry this heterosexual person. And there have been preachers who have refused to marry a heterosexual person because they felt that they didn't go through the counseling process, etc. All right?
Right.
So if nobody told you whom you should marry, why are you going around telling other people whom they should have intimate relationships with?
Right.
And then the other hypocritical thing about it is they claim they want to defend marriage.
Right.
Well, if they have been in the fight and defense of marriage, they've done a pretty bad job. They lost the battle.
Right.
For the divorce rate amongst heterosexuals is the highest, not in California,
Right.
not in New England, where people consider liberal, and way out, left field. It's not the highest in those states, I repeat. The divorce rate in America, and anyone who's listening to me can check it out on the computer, check the U.S. Census, is the highest in the Bible Belt.
Wow.
Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, and up into Oklahoma, where people go to church the most, sing the most, shout the most, pray the most. That's
Right.
picture is
Amazing.
it's bizarre. It's crazy. And you claim that you are defending marriage, and yet you have not done a good job
Right.
of keeping your own marriages going. And I say again and again, you can't blame gays, lesbians, transgender people for not being able to keep your own stuff together.
Right on.
Go in your own families, preach in your own church what you believe, but for God's sake, realize this is not a theocracy. This is not a society ruled by any one religion. That's in the Constitution.
Right.
All right, and that's what caused the Pilgrims and the Quakers and others to leave England, because they didn't want a state church. So why should we try through amendments and through propositions try to make America a state church? When we do that, Ms. Shorter, we're just as guilty as those people whom we assume or claim to be extreme, crazy Muslims in the Middle East,
Right.
who try to make those countries, state religions, and make religion control the society. You see what I'm saying?
There's a reason why we have
With separation of church
and
and state. And then the other thing that was immoral, illogical, and what didn't make sense is that the conservative white faith leaders in California led a fight that was based on lies. The first lie they told was that the state would be able to dictate and make pastors, faith leaders, marry gay people. And they told that lie, not
That's what it is. It's a
not
lie.
remembering, that never has any state legislature, state assembly, or state court told a pastor, you got to marry this person.
Right.
This never happened. And yet, they pull out the emotional and fear stops in this nation.
Right.
And unfortunately, we have this Proposition 8. But I have the faith that the day will come that this too will pass away.
Right. Right.
Mr. Obama is right on the issue. Even the president of the National Baptist Convention, Dr. William J. Shaw, said when George Bush on the first round tried to get constitutional amendment. The president of the largest African American faith community in this nation, William Shaw, I repeat, said at the convention when he gave his annual address, and I was right there, he said, though I do not practice same-sex marriages in my faith tradition, but I'm not going to let George Bush con me into supporting a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriages. If Mr. Obama, if Dr. Shaw, if Bill Clinton is coming around too, I think people need to follow the lead of these great personalities who have been on the right side of issues when it comes to human rights, equality of opportunity, and standing up for what our democratic society was established to do.
Wonderful.
So
thank you so very
that's
much.
it for me.
Thank you. I really appreciate your taking the time. And this has been truly enlightening. We appreciate all that you do, not just for this fight on marriage equality, but certainly as a civil rights leader here in the Bay Area for the state of California. You're serving as president of the NAACP here in San Francisco, and you've been president for a little time now of the NAACP chapter here, and clearly with the 100th year anniversary and celebration of the NAACP in 2009, we're especially glad that you've been able to join us and really support and really be out there on the front lines working for civil rights.
But we will
for
not.
everyone.
We will not finish the agenda
Right.
until we deal with the last great frontier, and that's homophobia.
Right.
That's afoot in the NAACP, in our faith communities, and unfortunately, still in America.
Right.
See, black people theologically have caved into the conservatism of whites, who use conservatism to keep the status quo. They use the Bible as an authority and take it out of context, thinking that you can't argue with God, you can't argue with the Bible on the basis of their biased, interpretation. So, unfortunately, many black preachers have tried to use the Bible, but you can't even use the Bible because the Bible is a mixed bag. It's not the last word on civility and truth. For example, it said in the Old Testament, in Levitical codes, if your child disobeys you, kill him, kill her.
That's right.
Now, who's going to kill that child? It's right there in the book.
Right.
And then it said in there, you shall not eat shellfish. How many of us eat shrimp? Huh? It also says you should not wear clothes that have mixed weave, or wool or silk.
Right.
Now, how many ladies come out?
Okay.
You could go on and on and on. And the other thing is, it said that a woman is not supposed to go into the holy place when she's on a menstrual cycle. Now, my God, if everybody lived up to that, the black church would be empty on Sunday morning. Here we are, 60 to 70% of the members in the black church are women.
Right.
So I could go on and on and point out the contradictions that are in the Bible and people taking things out of context. And the only thing that represents the hub and the essence of the Judeo-Christian faith tradition is Jesus said himself, the whole law is, thou shalt love the Lord thy God for all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. And that thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And if self doesn't want people being mean to self, don't be mean to other selves.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Jesus said that. That's the whole law. He said it.
Right.
And then the other interesting thing is Jesus says nothing about the lifestyle of a lesbian, neither a gay male.
Right.
Now, shouldn't they find it interesting that Jesus of Nazareth, who died for them, and they hoop about his dying on the cross and getting up on the third day, didn't say a word?
Right.
And they said, well, Paul said, well, who's Paul? Paul came later. He said, I was the chief of sinners. I was born out of season, you know. He was not one of the original 12. So he reflected the Greco-Roman culture that was oppressive against women, against children, and was hypocritical.
That's right.
Now they need to make up their mind. Are they going to follow Jesus? Are they going to follow a man like Paul?
Right.
Who at one time reflected the biases of his day and his society.
Right.
But even he grew up. For example, in Galatians, he said, there's neither male nor female, bond nor free, Scythian nor barbarian, but we are all one in Christ Jesus. Now, if Paul made that concluding statement before he died,
He reconciled.
yes, why don't they become reconciled to the truth and not be, you know, falling on these half-truths that we espouse? So, I could go on and on
Yeah,
with this.
it's
But I would hope that people will see, as the book of Hosea said, my people perish because of a lack of knowledge. And I'm confident that if more people were knowledgeable and they heard these factual, rational positions that I presented, we'd be further down the road toward coming to grips with this issue.
right.
But there's too much ignorance, misinformation, and lack of knowledge out there in our society.
Right.